I want to welcome you back to another episode of what I've branded pivotal since these interview style segments tackle impactful CPG industry topics and lessons from the business leaders that live it every day. In this episode, I talk with my amazing friend, aka the greatest nickname giver on planet Earth, aka the king of all wipes, aka the co founder and chief commercial officer of the surging personal hygiene brand Goodwipes, Sam Nebel. He shares how his prior experience on the franchising operations side of the specialty supplement retailer Complete Nutrition helped inspire some of the business strategies at Goodwipes. Sam and I dive into the wellness halo effect and explain how it's impacting a brand that's on a mission to change the way people think about hygiene. We also talk through a handful of Goodwipes market challenges and strategic lessons that you'll notice bridges the gap to the food, beverage, and nutritional supplement CPG categories. Those are just a few of the many topics that Sam and I discussed. So make sure you have some good wipes, body wipes within close proximity because you're going to need them to clean up all the sweat from the heat we brought in this episode. Welcome, Sam. Thank you for joining me. I'm really excited to talk to you and have you kind of help me kind of bridge the gap here on a subject I guess I don't talk a lot about, or a category I don't talk a lot about, which is like personal care and just some of the subcategories within personal care. A lot of my obviously community, I think you follow along, is more towards the food, beverage, nutritional supplements, but I think the subcategory are just kind of like the, I guess, intersection and where you guys at Good Wipes are at, I think is actually a lot more, I guess, applicable to my community than I think they would really even understand or kind of notice. And I think that you'd be the perfect person probably to help me bridge that gap, because me just talking about it myself, I don't think it adds the same level of validity that bringing on somebody like you that is the co-founder and chief commercial officer at a really impressive brand, Good Wipes. And I also think I quickly noticed when we were communicating that you're a big nickname guy. Is that from like a sports background?
Josh, I don't know where the nickname situation comes from. I think it's something, I think I'm definitely one of the best nicknamers in the world. And I think that's really important. I've done self nicknames, I've done external nicknames. I actually might be one of the greatest namers in the world, and all off intuition with very little linguistic background. I think it's something that I've been born with. It's just one of my gifts. I actually
Did you
consider
dub yourself the king of wipes, the king of all wipes? Then
I did. That's the nickname I gave
it,
myself.
I don't know if that's allowed though. You're not allowed to give yourself your own nickname.
Some people would say that, and I'm sure I would actually say 80 to 90% of the people watching us right now, of the millions of viewers, Josh will probably agree with you that you can't give yourself your own nickname. I disagree. It's just something that I've done, and it's something that seems to be working. So, and a lot of people don't know who comes up with my nicknames. They just kind of appear and they start calling me that, and I don't know what else to say other than there's market validation clearly.
Do you have vendors and customers calling you by that nickname?
I definitely have vendors calling me that. I have had, I feel like I've had definitely a lot of people who I would not suspect to say, "Hey, King of all wipes." However, I don't think I've yet to have a buyer, I believe. I feel like I've definitely have a few emails in there of people saying King of all wipes, and I forgot it's in the signature. I'm like, how they know that my name? And but I don't think I've had a buyer yet. We'll see. I'll have to go back in the archive.
Well, why I thought you'd be great to help me bridge this is actually because you have a little bit of a background in the supplement industry. I think
Yeah.
during late 2011 into 2014, you worked for Complete Nutrition, and
Right.
wanted to kind of have you talk through the transition from being on the retail side of the supplement industry and then jumping into the CPG entrepreneurship, because you kind of ran right up into when you guys founded Goodwipes. And I was trying to like rack my brain. I was thinking like, how does somebody go from the supplement industry to, creating a, wipes company, a hygiene company? And the only thing I could kind of come up with was that you were stuck in these stores for so long and you were constantly smelling protein farts. And it like was a spark of inspiration that you were like, this is what we have to do.
Josh, I can totally bridge the gap. Charlie and I are passionate about health and wellness and nutrition. We have, I mean, that's definitely, I think, not directly, but it's a byproduct of, that's kind of a subculture at Goodwipes. Everyone's into that type of thing, and wellness and mental health, which I think is really cool, just by like who we are as people. So I think that's kind of, it was never designed on purpose. Like Goodwipes is a health and wellness company, but we do tend to care about that. And I think that allows us and extends us empathy to consumers on a broader level where we're not selling with them directly in a one-to-one scenario. Is just the understanding of this is how we want to live our life. So there's a little bit of aspirational component that trickles into our brand, which can be silly because we're talking about butt wipes or feminine hygiene or body wipes. And it's like, it is still very taboo for most Americans to talk about those things. But we have that extra layer. And I'm happy to talk about, excited to talk about the translation into personal care and some of the similarities, of which I do believe there are many. And you tell me what you really want to dive into, but the transition, were there a lot of protein farts at Complete Nutrition? Most certainly. What really happened was, and I'm really going to spill all the beans here, because I don't think a lot of people know this story, but Charlie and I, we graduated from Florida State together, 2011, jumped right into managing stores for Complete Nutrition in Jacksonville, Florida, from Tallahassee, where we had started working in a few stores and really bought it. Let's just say we were pretty big into working out. It's kind of a culture in Tallahassee. So then in comes this supplement store, Complete Nutrition, and they're crazy, high energy, giving away free stuff. Frankly, a bit off-putting at the time, until Charlie and I found out how much revenue and profit a Complete Nutrition was doing at that time. So we said, because we didn't know what we wanted to do with our lives other than be entrepreneurs and work for ourselves, we said, we got to franchise one of these because they're blowing up from what we've heard. So that's why we moved to Jacksonville. We never told anyone that that's why we were doing that. We just said that we want to work for them so we can learn the ins and outs and then apply behind the scenes, which pissed off our boss at the time. And when he eventually found out that we were awarded to be franchisees, this was sometime in 2012, I think, they went on a franchise freeze because they grew too fast. So they grew from like 20 stores in Nebraska to like 50 stores in Texas and Wisconsin and a lot of Midwest Rust Belt type of areas where the main strategy, it's a fascinating MBA case study, where the main strategy was blast radio because the DMA was a low cost of penetration, drive consumers to the store, to something they've never experienced before. Completely different approach than a GNC or Vitamin Shop, where they're standing behind the counter and the guy or the gal doesn't really look like they're working out, and you're like, how am I supposed to trust this person? So Complete Nutrition would staff with extremely fit people, mostly meatheads, which Charlie and I were certainly meatheads at the time. And you'd work with them to understand who they were as people, where they were coming from, and what drove them to come in, because it's some sort of aspiration of muscle building or weight loss, and maybe a little bit of health, like vitamins. Probably 5% of the sales were from vitamins, and the rest came from weight loss and sports nutrition is what they call it, right? So they would come in, people would come in, and the minimum order, I think, or the average order was around $200. And that was driven a lot by the weight loss kits. And this allowed us to, number one, it was a great experience for Charlie and I to be working with people and really understand the consumer. We fell in love with merchandising. They would create they manufacture their own products, right? And so the merchandising was just beautiful. Target has the strategy, fewer, deeper, bolder. That's exactly what a complete nutrition would do. And you would just have shelves and shelves of the same product, all of their brands. So it flowed beautifully. We personally interact with people. So we learned sales and I think empathy on a really deep level where we were making connections. And the reason that Charlie and I made massive connections were, number one, a lot of the people we worked with got results. Two, we were consulting with them. So we were able to build like a personal, we help you relationship. And then three, truthfully and unfortunately, our history of complete nutrition was overshadowed by working at underdeveloped stores for about a year and a half. And we just had a little bit more time. So some people would come in and talk to us. And that's what a lot of people are craving. They want to be understood. They want to be heard. They want to be empathized with. But those elements were pivotal in following with us. And now how we build empathy, not as like a buzzword of like Gary Vee being like, be kind today, bro, which is totally cool, but more of like, hey, what are people actually going through and what do they want and how can we help them? And it doesn't mean that we have to be this like these, a preacher, but we can help people. And it's just like cool and normal. And like, hey, you want these butt wipes that are better for you for XYZ reasons. And that's what the supplement industry, I think, when supplements do the best, is I think they're hitting on those elements.
You're talking about the empathetic, customer centric type of mentality and how that was brought into Goodwipes, and want to talk about how the last maybe 2 years have gone for you guys and how that has been, I guess, applied and really been valuable over the last 2 years because of what obviously everybody's kind of went through. But I think the category as a whole, there was a lot of spotlight on your category, maybe the legacy part of it, the typical tissue paper, consumer tissue type, side of it. It became, in the zeitgeist of the consumer. All of a sudden, we didn't realize that we could run out of toilet paper, or we could, and I think that provided both, I guess, opportunities and also challenges for you over these last 2 years, because, and I'm just going to kind of run through a few things that were in my head, and you can kind of tell me if these things were, positives or negatives for your business. But I was thinking about, the consumer hygiene, like just awareness level has been super heightened, which I'm assuming is probably a very good thing for your business. I think a lot of the retail merchandising kind of resets were delayed because of the supply chain, which I think is probably going to be, not all that good. But I do think that there was both a prioritization of like these mega brands, which is not good, but also because of that, I think there was a lot of out of stocks that happened, which created trialing for you guys, which hopefully with your guys' kind of superior product, you were able to hang on to customers. And then, also just kind of thinking about, and I don't know, your guys' capital structure or what you guys went through during that time, but like just availability of capital and just, all that kind of stuff going on. Those are some of the things that I, at least in my mind, that I think are even applicable to the same, the other space as well. But I was kind of curious about in your particular business, like how you guys were navigating these last 2 years with some of those effects.
Yeah, no, I think that's that's great to think about and talk about. I mean, look, the end result of where we are now is, we grew 100% year over year from last year to this year. We're on the same trajectory again from 21 to 22. So we've had great growth over the past few years and nothing to complain about. I think look, it's net neutral. We were much smaller and we had such a small footprint in flushable wipes at the time. And we definitely got dinged up on the manufacturing right at the beginning, which then picked up like summer 2020. We picked back up and we were good to go. In a perfect world, we would have had 5 times. I mean, multiply the amount of distribution you would have had, and we would have had that many more sales and opportunities for trial for our product. Because as you mentioned, we do see incredible retention once someone tries our product across all of our channels. And for us, talking about the capital markets piece of it, we actually did have an investor pull out. I'm not going to name names here, but look, there were fallouts and then there were opportunities, and I think all of that creates a learning lessons and experience. Hopefully, experience from COVID doesn't have to translate into anything like that in the future, but just going through those swings of what can happen, what risk looks like, what people say force majeure, right? And it's like, oh, that don't ever happen. It's like, well, that's probably getting executed like on a daily basis, right? So we had a investor fallout, and we had already contact with a firm before who we ended up not going with. And then we reached back out to them, and they were extremely aggressive during that time frame. So it ended up working out. We were financed a few months later, able to pick back up with our plan, and go where we needed to go. And I think buyers were really responsive to us just because we were starting to get out there a little more. I think, look, again, net neutral, right? Like half of them said, hey, we're not going to review this year. And then the other half said, actually, why don't we bring you in? Because I'm getting stiffed by, X, Y, and Z. Won't name names, but that created opportunity for us. And then when there were some out of stocks, it did create that ability to create some trial. And that trial, like I said, has led to incredible repeat purchase, and the velocities in all of our stores are up since when we've, inception into that account. So look, it happened. It stinks. We're still dealing with the ramifications as an economy as a whole, macro and micro. I don't think you can't keep your eye off the ball here, right? Like, it's such a volatile environment for anything. I mean, one ingredient you could hear about changing the price of changing your whole cost structure, and you have to figure out how does that work. So it's a huge puzzle that never stops moving. But overall, I think it was a great time for us to really figure out and focus and just like say, hey, it's this is it. Let's keep moving forward here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good mentality. I think that this particular period of time, though, I think people would rather it be, the Goldilocks type era where everything's going well and everything's good. I mean, I definitely think that whoever comes out of these 2 years plus that we're kind of going through this are going to be like so battle tested that, who knows what they can achieve in the long run. It's just, it's always a mental grind in the sense of like, you want to always approach challenges as opportunities, but like every single day is a new one that like it's tough to like keep your mind in it and saying like, yeah, this is another opportunity to get better, another opportunity to get better. Like you're like, can we just get a break at this point?
Yeah, no, I mean that's totally true. And as if running a CPG emerging brand isn't hard enough, right? Like, you layer this on top of it, and not just for us, like our team and employees and team members of emerging brands too, right? Like, everyone's dealing with crazy stuff at home and in market, and it's really, really nuts. So I think there is a lot of battle testing that comes out of it, and I think a good exercise to do, and I try to do it, I'll do it with some folks on our team and even myself, is saying, because we'll look and say, oh crap, look at all the 500 things that we want to do, is turning back around and saying, hey, look what we just did in a week, or look what we just did in a month. It's amazing the amount of work that we've accomplished as a team. And I think that's a good and healthy exercise. It doesn't take a lot of time. It's just like, hey, look what we achieved, right? In this period, look what we dealt with. Can you believe it? And you laugh about it later in some ways, right? If you live to see another day. So yeah, I think that's the attitude you have to take with it, and just kind of roll with the punches.
Yeah, definitely love that. You mentioned a little bit earlier, this is kind of be a central theme throughout our conversation, but just, how you guys kind of baked in some of that health and wellness mindset into your guys' brand when you were getting it built, and just kind of throughout throughout these last, I think at this point, almost 8 years at this
Yeah.
point. And, I was thinking about just overall this idea of like the wellness trend, and just kind of how that's become really like all encompassing. It's infiltrated and influenced like every nook and cranny of like our lives at this
Mhm.
point. And
Mhm.
I remember a few years ago, everybody's like, every brand is a tech company at the end of the day, or, and I think about this as like every company now needs to be a wellness company as well. And it's like, if it's internal wellness, thinking about the employees differently, and trying to make sure you support them. Maybe it's through applications within products or whatever it is, but people need to realize that has to be put into the forefront of brands at this point. Like, wellness needs to be a lens that you look through in your company. And I was thinking about it, not necessarily from, the internal side of things, but more question around maybe externally, and how people are being a little bit more hypersensitive on like their wellness routines, their health routines, all those types of things, and trying to think about, has that been a propellant, I guess, of for your guys' product being a better for you or even a little bit more premium product than, the typical competitor on shelf?
And Josh, I had you cut out for a second, but it sounds like you were talking about how wellness has infiltrated into our culture
Yeah.
and is that competitive advantage. I think you're spot on where, look, you're already seeing it. Like everything is about wellness. You go to Target, Walmart, any end cap or a display, it's, if it doesn't explicitly say health and wellness, like it is pushing it onto you. The imagery is about health and wellness. And I think that's a great thing for society. I wish the health numbers, however they're measured, would follow with disease rates going down and obesity going down and things of that nature, which is really tough. You hear a lot of nutrition battlefields going on with meat versus no meat and all that things and all the different types of dietary nutrition tracking. Look, I think here are the ways that we've incorporated it into our business. A number of ways, and some we took from Complete Nutrition. I wouldn't even say that all of them were intentional. For example, Charlie and I's innate passion for health and wellness and fitness wasn't something we sat down and said, hey, this is like, we need to have this in Goodwipes, right? We didn't do that. I think it just kind of innately carried with us as genuine authenticity of who we are as people, transcending the company, because we're running it every day for the majority of our 7 or 8 years, right? We definitely started off, just kind of taking you back in the time capsule here. We were ingredient geeks and hounds, and I remember ordering and looking at every single wipe product in the local Publix, because we started out at my parents' house in Orlando, Florida. So we would go through the ingredients of every single wipe that we ordered off Amazon and that was available at Publix for any use case, and just said, and looked them up and said, what do we like? What don't we like? And that kind of infiltrated to get us to the premiumized products that we have now, and that infiltrate all products from our entire brand portfolio. That comes from, and why our products are the way they are now, comes from a customer obsession. And that obsession also came from Complete Nutrition, where we knew, like, in order to win, have to be differentiated, have to come with our own unique formula, distinctiveness, something that's memorable, and being obsessed with customers like we were at Complete Nutrition because our lives depended on it. Remember, we were aiming to be entrepreneurs, right? So we had money at stake, or we had skin in the game to succeed, even when we weren't technically franchisees. We were working towards that. So we were really literally obsessed with the customers that we were working with to demonstrate good results, because we thought that was going to be our future for the rest of our lives, owning and operating these Complete Nutrition stores. So that has transcended obsession with the customer experience to get the products that we have now, which definitely took a long time. And then I think innately as a culture, I do think, maybe I don't think about it as much, but it probably does reveal itself, I think, in some of the content and the way that we approach things, and even the way that we have an amazing brand update that we're about to reveal shortly, and some campaigns that we've been working on. I think that all comes from just the company's natural orientation around health and wellness and feeling good. And a lot of feeling good comes from health and wellness, we now know.
You mentioned through an email, we're talking about, how you guys, even with some of the surveys and things, like understanding, customers' diets. And I'm even thinking about, with the hyper focus towards, even categories like gut health and specific diets that are focused on, maybe helping regularity or a number of other things, like how those things could even play into your guys' business. Because I think that a lot of that attention is now getting put on an area that is, widely misunderstood still, and we're still kind of getting the sense of like what the gut microbiome means and everything. But a lot of that also has to do with, I think, your category, not necessarily just what I mean? It's got to go upstream and downstream, I guess, is the thinking here.
I was just thinking about that. Yes, like, so we do track dietary trends. We track anything that could affect our business, right? So we go all the way upstream from the esophagus all the way down to the perianal area. Okay, so it's all connected. We know. So we want to track and understand how folks' dietary patterns and trends and fads affect the amount of times that they're defecating throughout a day and a week, because the more that someone poops, what we call super poopers, the more that they will be likely to adopt our new hygiene routine. And so it's not only natural, again, for us to be tracking that, because we all care about health and wellness. We all care about gut health. But we're not just like, a numbers nerd in the back saying, oh, this is happening. It's like, we understand that because half the team has probably done that diet, right? So it's like, when we talk about caffeine culture, that's something we track as well. We have a heavily caffeinated culture. I mean, Josh, I was in a refrigerator of an amazing retailer that we talked about last week, and every single can in there, probably 80% had 200 milligrams of caffeine. I've pretty much gotten off of caffeine. I'm probably under 20 milligrams a day now. And I'm like, that is a lot. That is a lot of caffeine, 200 milligrams. And that's probably not the only drink. And we know that that makes you go to the restroom. So we do track those things. We do track dietary changes, trends, fads, and anything that can allow us to tie into their lifestyle because of what they're putting in their body and their mouths.
As you were saying that, I was like thinking to myself, maybe I should grab the energy drink and have a little sip there since.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Get revved up, man.
I think mentioned earlier in the conversation and introduction about, some of these maybe applicable lessons from that are in your category, but also in the, more, I guess, ingestible food, beverage, nutritional supplement space that I spend a lot of time in. And, a few different themes that I thought, at least in my mind as an analyst, like how I see these things could be kind of interesting to talk through. And the first one was around, really the idea of the sea of sameness. This is something like your category is notorious for. You go down an aisle and you think about this. It's basically, bland private label. You got Georgia Pacific, you got Procter and Gamble, and then you got Kimberly Clark. That, yeah, some of them maybe try to use a little bit of branding, marketing angle, try to whatever, but by and far it's just boring. Like just
Boring.
nothing. It's just nothing. Like I even thought about this when we were getting ready to talk, and I was thinking I had to go to our pantry to see like what we had stocked, because I was thinking I have no idea what we bought last time. I don't know. And I'm like thinking the time before I don't know, and the time before I don't know. It's like that I had no brand loyalty, and I'm sure the vast majority of people that are buying legacy product also have no brand loyalty. And I was thinking about, that obviously the commoditization of the category and how you guys need to stand above and beyond and be different from that. But also like those products within that commodity, they're doing very like nuanced product marketing and attributes, like where, is it a second ply? Is it quilted? Is it like, but what does that mean? It's like, they don't really even go into the aspect of like, from a consumer, like, why should I care that has that over something else? And I think a lot of that has applications to like these other categories, because it's the same thing. You go down any aisle and you get that sense as well of like, why should I care? Why does this all look the same? Like, I don't understand. And then there's a few brands like you guys in every category that have been able to build off of that and go, we could create a cool story that's different than everybody else.
It's one of my, I probably say this about a lot of things, but it's one of my favorite dynamics of the category is you walk down that aisle and the retailer is in last week, they have 60-foot toilet paper aisles, 60 feet of toilet paper. And no one would want to shop all the way down the aisle. And fortunately, this retailer has now a 4-foot set with wipes, and they kill it with wipes. And the more space that they are giving to flushable wipes, they automatically see consumers come in, join, and adopt. Even then, I don't know what the percentage is, but we were passing out coupons and samples in the aisle, and we had to like yell at people at the other side of the aisle, like say, "Hey, come down here," and we had to go meet them halfway. But it's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. I don't even know why there has to be differentiation, because it's all the same thing. And look, I see what they're doing. There's what I call it there's two things going on. One, there definitely is some product differentiation that they're pushing, but it's a confusopoly, right? That's the name that's a name that comes from Scott Adams, the author of Dilbert. Industries that engage in being a confused opoly are health insurance, probably any type of insurance, but definitely health insurance and healthcare, and like cellular services, right? You don't know what's going on. They just try to confuse the heck out of you. You just say, I'm so annoyed, let me just sign up, right? And that's exactly what toilet paper is, because 530 rolls equals 540 mega rolls equals 17,000 squares equals 18 million poops, which lasts you 62 days. And it's like, wait, what part do they care about? They're soft, they're strong, they're soft and strong. Why not just make them all soft and strong? I don't get a lot of it. And why do you need to have the growth so far to date over the past 80 years, and more recently the past 5, 10, 15 years, just comes from adding more rolls and the size of the rolls in a bigger pack, taking up more space, driving up more dollar rings, when the customer has no idea what's going on. And we say, hey, who cares? Why don't we just sell you this for $3.49? It's a better experience. And we're seeing people switch completely off of toilet paper for folks that are adopting. And it's like way simpler, it's cheaper, and it lasts longer. And we don't even really talk about that many attributes. We just say, this is better for you, try it. And we have that adoption.
Yeah, and this kind of shifts into what I wanted to ask you next, because there's the typical, I guess, product-centric marketing, and then there's the bigger kind of brand storytelling and all that. And I know that you guys lean towards the brand storytelling, but for your specific, I think this maybe could be of value to some people, especially some of the sales professionals and things that are listening to this, is that does that change, like, from your direct to consumer? Obviously, you're not directly involved with selling something one-to-one in that scenario, but you guys obviously have that aspect of it, compared to when you're walking into, say, HEB, Target, Walmart, and talking to their buyers. Are you more product centric in the way that you deliver your information? Are you still talking about brand, and you're talking about why you're different, and kind of above and beyond just that basic, like, we have a great product? Because I think the great product is kind of the entry fee to compete in the market at this point. Like, everybody has a great product, or at least one that suffices for a consumer to continuously buy that. So it's like you have to have something above that. But from your angle, like, do you change that pitch a little bit, or are the merchandising teams, buyers, do they understand the brand storytelling aspect of a category that maybe, if they've been in that buying of that category for the last 10 years, like, they're used to just these big companies probably just hitting them with, here's the lowest price, here is our product, you need to stock it, and that's it.
We spend probably, look, and I'll talk about consumer first. Consumer product is really important for a number of reasons. There's habit switching, there's this versus that, there's us versus baby wipes, just being objective here, right? We do brand, so we're actually enhancing both our product and brand marketing experiences and activation experiences for consumers that you'll start seeing probably in the next 2 weeks, that are going to be really, really fun to watch. From when we speak with a retailer, engage with a retailer, we do laughably little product. We have probably maybe a slide or two. It's probably the shortest amount of time. We really are spending time on category and the subcategory and the trends that we talked about. Some of the trends that we build in. Those are probably the ones that we talk about with diet, nutrition. It's probably 50% of the trends that we hit on. So it's really talking about category, really talking about what we're seeing, really talking about usage and consumption and changing in habits, to let them know that there's space to grow this category. And then we'll do a little bit on what we're doing as a brand and just touch on it. And then we'll do a little bit talking about, well, I mean, we do try to spend a lot of time here. Yes, brand, of like what we're doing for activating, like what are the fun activities, and we show them and show how it comes to life in really fun and quirky ways that have worked for us. But not a lot of product. There's just not a lot to be discussed. I think they understand when they see the samples and they're playing around with it on the Zoom call. It's like, we feel pretty good about that. So it's a good thing.
You mentioned earlier around taboo subjects, and I think on one hand, feminine hygiene, and if it's some type of hygiene routine that after you go to the bathroom, like, that shouldn't be something that is particularly taboo, but it is. And I think about even the application to more the functional food, functional beverage, nutritional supplement space, and like categories like, be it like sexual wellness, that's like really hot right now, that's starting to like break down some of those taboo subjects, or even like, mental health. Again, another one that's like, shouldn't be taboo at all, but for whatever reason has been in our culture for the longest time until very recently, when people are starting to break down those walls. And even things like maybe hair loss, both on the female and male side. Like, I'm thinking about, like, obviously there's a lot of that application. You guys have to deal with that still. And I'm thinking about maybe even through you guys trying to attract influencers, or, UGC creation, or any of those, like, people maybe are not all that like cool about creating that content and putting it out to their audience. Even though we all do it and it would be super impactful, for whatever reason, you're fearful of putting that stuff out there.
We definitely have a lot of folks, and I think it shows through when there's an influencer who really is bought in. There's definitely been quite a bit who do care, who like are vocal about FemHi, right? But there isn't as much people. There just aren't as many people saying you need to take care of your butt, right? So that's been interesting for us, and you have to kind of wrap it into humor. We track and watch conversation. That's one of the trends that we talk about too, is people are more willing to talk about those things now. On a broad level, probably not. I think it's the younger generation who is much more willing, Gen Zs and younger millennials, who are much more willing to discuss anything really that comes to the tip of their tongue, right? I mean, they'll talk about mental health, they'll talk about social issues, political, economic issues. They'll really talk about anything. And hygiene is definitely something that we're seeing them talk about more and more. Again, wrapped up into this big package of overall health and wellness. So we're definitely seeing more folks willing to. Those folks tend to steer younger, and or have the dynamics of they care about their bodies. And if we're talking about butt wipes, and they're capable of infusing humor. So most of their posts are serious. It's kind of difficult to share about butt wipes. So.
I was even thinking, I don't know when it was, maybe within the last year or two, that there was a survey or some results that got kind of populated around. And I'm sure this is stuff that you guys do internally, but maybe you saw this one that kind of got circulated around, where it was talking about even just, do you go front to back to front? Like, what, do you use baby wipes, regular wipes? Do you use toilet paper? Like, because if you think about it, like, nobody really talks about that aspect. Like, you're not with your buddies, drinking a few beers, watching the game, and then you just guys bring up like, hey, how do you guys wipe after you go to the bathroom? Because we don't talk about it, maybe we don't know the most hygienic way of doing something, which I think is a huge opportunity probably for you guys. But as you said, like, you have to kind of figure out how to wrap it up in a way that makes it, like,
Sure.
it penetrates the best, I guess, like within within customers.
So what we've done is, we were very intentional about this over the past 2.5 years, and I think this has led to our success in market recently, is knowing that there's a challenge when folks are buying baby wipes, or they're buying private label wipes, or a brand that doesn't look very good in their bathroom, kind of like how Method did and Hello toothpaste. Is I kind of want that Sensodyne in my drawer, right? Or in below the sink. I don't want it standing out. And we saw that same situation happening with wipes. It just doesn't look very good in the bathroom. And more people are investing in, especially over the past 2 years, in what their home looks like, and because of wellness, their private spaces, like the bathroom becomes a sanctuary. So what we decided to do is play into that luxuriousness while maintaining our playful and don't take us too seriously feel, to where we can actually look good inside of the bathroom. Why do I say this? Because that, we believe, is the point of one of the largest and most significant points of discovery. When everyone's coming over watching for the Super Bowl or the game or whatever, or the gals are doing their gathering, when they go to the bathroom, see our product, that's where the word of mouth circle begins to penetrate. And that's how you initiate the discussion, to say, oh, what are those? Like, oh, you don't wipe your butt with wipes? And that's where we're seeing the best and most, I think, viral and shareable moments. And so this was all by design, that we embedded into our product line over the past 2.5 years.
Yeah, I really love that last point. I think that you want to have these products be shown off, and you mentioned, like something like method, or like where your dish soap or your hand soap, like it used to be, you want to hide it because it was so ugly, and then now you're like, well, this is a great looking thing. I don't mind it being out during the day, and I think that like your category as a whole, like it's lacked that. There hasn't been something where you feel comfortable putting that somewhere where it would be viewable and not having to hide it and be like embarrassed. And I think like it's kind of in the last point that I wanted to kind of mention that maybe has some application is really aligned with that last thought, because I think about like the Nike method of like thinking about like their product is like the most important marketing tool. Be that from the look, be that from the actual performance of the product, be that all those types of things. And I think that this has a ton of application to the ingestible side as well, because product taste is king, those types of things. I mean, when somebody gets to taste something, or gets put in their hand, they're more than likely going to enjoy that. It's just a matter of getting that trialing. And I think even for you guys, talk through like maybe a little bit around like your guys' sampling mentality, and like trusting that those samples are going to create both retention, and then also like building community through that, because I think that's like a super important thing, especially up until I think you guys had a little bit of that capital raise. Like, I mean, everything was being super organic and being slow and steady, and kind of focusing on that side of it, not just pumping a ton of paid and just trying to get bait that game, or try to find a little bit of a hole in the system. You guys build it the more meticulous, foundation strong way.
Yeah, no, I love that. Sampling is something, so you kind of had to turn it off for a period of time, at least during 2020 and 2018, 19, with, because we really were kind of more out there with feminine hygiene than we were with our flushable butt wipes. It just had gotten pretty good traction in retail. And what we did with that was I mean, a number of things. One, we targeted a bunch of health and wellness boxes, sexual and feminine health and sexual wellness boxes, like sample boxes that would go out. And on top of that, we would embed ourselves in communities where people were gathering of folks that would use our product. So there were a number of recent mom groups, or women who recently became mothers, getting back into exercising, and we would just sample the heck out of them. And they were at to the point, and so what they would do is the different chapters around the country would tell the other ones, or they would see them post, and then they would all just come to us. So it was a very quick flywheel and funnel, and they loved it. And then we would just see our sales and retail start to keep going up because people were posting and sharing about it. That's the way to do it. That's the James Richardson method. That's the Ted Wright method from Fizz. That's You're going to see us doing a little bit more of that with a few key groups over the next few years, and I think that's going to be fun, because it is just a way to kind of break down conversation outside of the home, right? So,
Well, Sam, I really appreciate all the time you gave me and in my community. I think there was a ton of super valuable nuggets of information
sure,
that we kind of
sure.
produced here. So super thankful that you took some time out of your day to join me.
Cool. No, I really appreciate it. That was a blast. I would love to do it again. I'll pay to be on again. I'll send you Goodwipes to get on again. That was too much fun.
Sounds like a deal.
I hope you enjoyed this YouTube video. If you did, consider hitting the like button to support me. Also, help me get to my short-term goal of 2,000 subscribers by hitting the subscribe button. I'd love to see you join me on this journey, but we need to fix the fact that slightly more than 80% of you that are watching this YouTube video right now are not subscribed to my channel, and that makes me extremely sad. But I do want to thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one.